am going.
And we are live on a Friday for some painting.
Yay!
Yay! It was a little hairy there for a while, but
you're on camp vacation mode. That's
I think
what
I
it
am.
is.
I totally have vacation brain, and I haven't even technically started vacation yet. But I am here with Sarah.
Hi!
And we have a new mic hooked up, so let us know if you can hear us well in the chat. Hopefully that sounds really good for you guys, and hopefully you can see everything really well. We're going to paint this beautiful peacock, and I've got a couple reference photos for you linked in the video description, so you can kind of have a look at those and get a good idea of what we're going to be painting. And the pattern is available on my website. There's a link in the video description, and you can print it and trace it. And of course, if you want to chat now, I don't blame you. You can always paint it later because the replay will be available. This video is brought to you by jerrysartorama.com. I have all of the supplies I use in this project and on most of my streams in a teacher's list. If you just click that, it'll show you exactly what I'm using today, and that should be really helpful. Plus, there is a list of just the colors that I'm using in case you want to use a different brand than what we're using. We're going to start off by wetting our background. And if you have questions for me, you can type them in all caps in the chat, and Sarah will relay them to me. I don't like to answer the same question twice, so if you put a question in there and it doesn't get answered, it probably was answered earlier in the stream. And so just watch back at the beginning and you will catch it. And I always think that, why am I saying that now? Because if you're here now, you obviously are watching it from the beginning.
JLT110110, comment for Lindsay. Thanks for the Doctor Who obsession.
You're welcome. You've been watching Doctor Who.
I am. I'm all caught up to the newest season.
Oh, wow.
So
wonderful.
Yep. So now I have to wait for that to come out because, of course, they're partway done with the new season.
Yeah, I don't know where you can see it now. Is it Amazon?
Yeah,
or is it
I have it through Amazon Prime. I mean, yeah. I could technically see the new season, but then I'd have to pay $1.99 an episode or buy the whole season, and I'll just wait.
Just wait a couple months.
So I started watching Once Upon a Time over again because they're getting season 5 on here pretty soon.
Oh yeah, I need to watch that again. I forgot so much that's happened in that show. That's another good show. If you want another, obsession, that's another good one. All right, so now I'm going to grab a few different colors. The colors I'm using are Permanent Gamboge, which is a warm yellow. Pthalo blue, which is a nice peacocky color. We have turquoise, phthalo green, Pyroll red, which is a kind of a more warmy. It leans more towards yellow than it does towards purple, so it's a very warm red, and burnt umber. I'm just going to change my screen view here so I can see what the heck I'm doing. And we'll be able to mix all the colors that we need from this. And I mean, look at the pretty gray we get from the Pyroll red and the phthalo blue and the turquoise together. It's such a lovely color. So we're going to begin with some Permanent Gamboge. And I have my palette set so you can see kind of what I'm doing here. I'm making sure, even though my paints are well dried in the wells, I still like to kind of tap mount my palette with a little water, make sure I don't have any chunks. And I'm going to throw in just some background here. Give it some light. And now I'm going to take a little bit of the phthalo green and add that to my Gamboge. And the phthalo green is a very cool bluish green. And see, when we add those together, it gives us a much more natural green. And that's going to be real pretty here in the background. It almost looks like a sap green. It actually looks a lot like the sap green from Turner. And the paints I'm using are the Turner Artist Watercolors. They're really good value. And all the colors that I'm using are in the entry-level set that's $29. So if you have that set, you are all set. And if not, just approximate with what you have on your palette.
Michael Deerdorf. Hi, Sarah and Lindsay. Have you ever thought about doing an art haul giveaway?
I do art hauls occasionally. Like if I just did one from Simon that I picked up stuff at Simon Says Stamp, and I do one after like the stamp show. Usually I do giveaways on my blog. It's very difficult to give things away on YouTube because I find that it's hard to get in touch with the people that win. And then I end up having to hold on to it because I can't give it away again because I'm still waiting for the person to contact me. So what I do, if you follow my blog, link is in the video description, and you can sign up for email updates, so you'll just get an email every time I put a new blog post up. That's where I do my giveaways, because when you leave a comment to win, when you sign up, you put your email address down. I can see that, the world can't, but when somebody wins, I send an email. I don't hope that people are just going to tune back into my blog. because I know people are busy and they don't always come back, and I want the winner to actually get the prize. So that's why I don't do the giveaways on YouTube, but I do at least one giveaway a month. I'm adding a little burnt umber into this because I want my background a little duller, and that's going to make my peacock seem a little brighter if we have a little bit of dullness back there. I'll add a little phthalo blue to that too, right into that brown, because I like to get as many colors as I can into the background.
Brooke Clevenger, what medium did you draw with?
I sketched with pencil, and then I just threw away my sketch, but I put it on my blog. But I sketched with pencil, and then I use transfer paper, which is just a graphite. It's almost like a wax paper that's graphite on it. It's not really wax, but it's a very sheer paper. And then I put that down, put my drawing on top, and draw over it again, and then that's how I get my design onto my paper.
Bonnie Green, can whiskey be used to keep the background paint off the peacock? Whiskey? Whiskey?
As long as you just wet the area you want your background to go, your paint's not going to go in there. I don't think you need to use whiskey. I've never used whiskey. There's a movement called whiskey painters, but I don't think it's as much they painted with whiskey. I think they used whiskey like flasks to hold their water, and they drank while they painted. Don't waste your whiskey. Yeah. Water works fine, people.
Especially if it's the good stuff.
Yeah. Woo. I'm using, also took a little of that Pyroll red and some of the Pthalo blue, made a nice gray. I'm going to add some of that in there too, because again, I love to integrate as many colors as possible into the background. It just makes everything more cohesive.
Rochelle Don Paul, hey Lindsay, is it a good practice to start with the background first?
I like to, usually, unless I'm thinking that I might keep a white background, just because if you try to go, like, if I painted this peacock, and I've got these little flags, these little feathers up here on the head, and let me just show you here, and if I painted the peacock first, and then I had to go in and fuss around all those little feathers, it would look so awkward and less natural. So if I know I'm going to do a background, I do it first. And just have a look around your background and make sure you don't have any puddles, because if you have puddles, you're going to get blooms. Not that it's a big deal if that happens, but if you don't want them, you just want to blot up any puddles. I don't seem to have any puddles here, so I am just going to leave it be. And now we're going to do some color mixing. I'm going to wipe off my palette so we can start fresh together, and you can see what we're going to do. So, in fact, I'm just going to set this aside, and I'm going to pull my palette right out in front and center, and I'm going to clean it up here.
Bonnie meant whisk it.
Oh, you know what? I think she means probably frisk it. Oh. Yes, you could, but I don't think it's necessary. I only use masking fluid when I absolutely can't paint around something, because you have to wait for it to dry. It can be kind of hard to find and expensive depending on where you live, and it smells horrible. It's also really hard on your brushes, so you have to either use a crappy brush or take a brush and load it up with soap first and then clean it out immediately. And for me, it's too fussy. But, I do use it if it's something like maybe sea spray or something I really need to keep white that would be difficult to paint around. For something like this, though, I think it would look worse with the frisket, because you might end up with some really hard edges instead of soft, natural edges. So to mix these colors, first let's go ahead and I'll show you how to make a nice, almost black blue, really, really dark navy. We're going to start off with our Pthalo blue. And that's that blue right there. If you don't have Pthalo, you could use Prussian blue. Any sort of blue that is really, it looks more like it would make a better green than a better purple, basically. If you were to look at this on the color wheel, it'd be right next to green. And then we're going to take some Pyroll red. And the reason I'm using that is because that looks more like orange. They look very opposite. So when I mix these two together, I get a nice, rich, deep indigo color. Like that?
Is pretty.
Nice, pretty color. Now I still want to cool that down a little bit, so I'm going to rinse my brush. A lot of paint on there. I don't want to contaminate my blue. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more blue. So that's going to be the darker areas on our peacock.
Becky Udall, when I want to paint with watercolors over a stamped image, do I use pigment ink or dye-based ink to stamp that image?
When she wants to stamp what over an image?
When she wants to watercolor, she wants to paint with her watercolors over a stamped image. Does she use the pigment or dye-based?
I would recommend a dye-based ink that's waterproof, such as Ranger Archival, or Stampin' Up! Has a basic black, and they have like 2 or 3 colors that are waterproof. All the Ranger Archival paints are waterproof, and I really like them. Sometimes pigment ink can be used, but a lot of times you still get a smudge because it takes a long time to dry. So there we have our turquoise, which is a less intense blue, a little easier to control, and there's the phthalo blue all on its own. Now I'm going to grab phthalo green. Now in some paint sets they'll call this Viridian hue, but it's PG7. It's phthalo blue. It's phthalo green rather. It's a very blue-based green. We'll get our Gamboge, our permanent Gamboge here.
I love that name. Permanent Gamboge.
Yeah, isn't it lovely?
Maxine Perry. Hi, Lindsay and Sarah. Lindsay, how was vacation? Where did you go?
Haven't gone yet.
That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
When we start. She's on vacation shutdown.
Yeah.
I remember being at work and, you know, your vacation day was a day or 2 away and just your brain just starts shutting down.
Yeah. And it's going to be like I'm not even gone because I'm like pre-scheduling everything and I've got videos every day except for 2 and I might even have a couple more done by the end of the day for those 2 days. So it's going to be like I'm still here except I won't be answering comments and
I won't be here either. I'll be at camp at one point visiting you guys.
That's what I should have done. I should have Sarah fill in for me for the week. Wouldn't that be fun?
Well, I don't paint very well and would be a failure. You'd probably lose some subscribers.
Oh, I don't think so. Another fun color that we're going to do is a gray that is less intense. So of course we could take water and add it to that. Let me just show you here. I hope you guys don't mind this little extra mixing lesson while we're waiting for the background to dry. So this is kind of a low intensity. It looks very blue when we have it painted out. I can add a little bit more red into that and have it a little bit more gray or brown. Like that, but still it's a pretty intense color. So we're going to need a lesser intense gray. So if we take some turquoise, because it's a lesser intense blue, and then I use some very watery, like a very little bit of pigment here of the Pyroll red, we'll get a very soft gray. And that's really useful, especially when we're painting the beak and we're doing shadows around the eyes. And that's some of the first things we're going to do there, so I wanted to show you those mixes. So sometimes when you do, the more vibrant and intense your colors are, usually the more useful they are, but if you do have some softer colors, that's what you want to use those for. I know we have a tendency to get the brightest, purest colors we can, but those soft colors also serve a purpose. So this is what I'm using for colors. I'm going to put everything back the way it was. I'm going to hit my background with a heat gun just to be absolutely sure it's dry. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know in the chat while I'm drying this up.
We've got questions.
Great. Okay, what do we got?
Indian summer art. I constantly seem to have too much water on my paper when I watercolor. What am I doing wrong?
You might be using a brush that is too thirsty. You could try switching to a synthetic brush, like a Aqualon or Ebony Splendor or anything that's meant for acrylic paints, as long as it's not too harsh. I bet your brushes are just grabbing too much water for you, and it's diluting the pigment. Or you could maybe try painting on dry paper if you want to keep your brushes really juicy.
Joyce Kimball, what can I combine for permanent Gamboge?
Well, if you have cadmium yellow, you could use that. Or you could take, well, you can use whatever is your warmest yellow. You could use lemon yellow and yellow ochre, but it's not going to be as bright. But any warm yellow is going to be fine for that. You could use green gold. You could use quinacridone gold.
Steph13, can you say hi to me and my son? Stephanie and Steven. Stephanie and Steven, we never miss Lindsay's videos.
Hi, Stephanie and Steven. Thank you so much for painting with us today.
And yes, Chewy is here. Dominique's dog can hear the caller. She is here. She's sad because the chickens have moved on to another home.
Yes.
So she couldn't chase them when we got here.
Yes, the chickens have gone to greener pastures, gone to a farm with lots of chickens.
Other chicken friends.
All right, so we're going to take some of that. We're going to take a little bit of the scarlet, the Pyroll red, rather, And I'm just going to take it with a little bit of the turquoise.
Chewy's like 2 inches away from your foot.
Ooh, okay. Conveniently located.
Yes.
And we are going to go in here on the beak. We're going to add a little bit of that right on the top of the beak and down the line there. And I'm putting it in kind of thick because I'm going to clean my brush off and spread it. And then it's neat because as it dries, some of the colors will separate a bit and it will give us a really cool look. I'm going to go in with a little bit more turquoise. That's kind of a little too red.
Gracie Shack, would you get the Derwent watercolor pencils or the Inktense for students?
It really depends on what you're trying to teach. The watercolor pencils are going to be much more soft, and the Inktense are much more vibrant. And it depends if you have any lifting techniques that you think they might want to do. Then they're going to want the regular ones because the Inktense do not lift once they're dry. You can always glaze over this later if you want to make it darker, so keep that in mind. Then I'm going to go really water down that color and add some into these areas. It's just going to give us a shadow. So I put the color down and then just kind of spread it a little bit with or soften it with a wet brush. I'm going to do the same thing up here because you rarely ever see anything that's bright white, pure white. Go with a little more intense of that color and do in the nostril. And then I'll just spread around some of the color with a damp brush.
Kevin Crespo, can you substitute turquoise blue with cerulean blue?
Yes, you can.
Brooke Clevenger, Addison, my daughter, asked, do you teach a class for extremely talented 5-year-olds?
No, but if you're in the Orrington, Maine area, there are classes at the library that I teach. Well, and everybody's extremely talented at that age, I think.
That's true.
I'm going to wet the area under the white patch in the eyes. And we'll be adding in some phthalo blue in just a second. This is going to help our paint blend and spread.
Elaine Rigby, is the phthalo blue red shade or green shade?
Green shade. Unless otherwise noted on your tube, it will be green shade. I don't think I even have a tube of phthalo blue red shade.
No?
I don't think so. I like ultramarine blue for a reddish blue. Alright, so we're going to use some of this phthalo blue, nice and bright here.
Jashnur Darwal, what colors are your favorite from the palette you're using?
Boy, they have a lot of my favorites on there. I really like ultramarine. I'm not using it in today's lesson, but I use ultramarine almost every time I paint. It's got a lovely color and it's clean, but it also granulates, so it does some it mixes really interestingly with other colors. I'll grab a little turquoise in here too. I like burnt sienna. It's again not a color I'm using today, but it's one of the most useful and favorite colors. In fact, with ultramarine blue, it makes a beautiful gray. The only colors that I'm not in love with in this palette are the Mayan colors. They're just not my cup of tea. Nothing wrong with them. They're just not colors that I tend to use that much.
Rabbit Child, Lindsay, your Sabo palette looks quite non-staining. Is it better than other plastic palettes?
Yeah, I haven't found it to stain. And you can use a lid for mixing, which is nice. I'm trying to think. I don't know why some plastics stain. For the ones that I have that do stain, it doesn't really bother me that much that they stain. I'm not sure what kind of plastic it is that makes it not stain. But yeah, I haven't had a problem with it. I'm going to grab a little bit of, I have my brushes loaded up with the Pthalo blue. I'm going to grab some of the Pthalo green here and add that here underneath, and that gives us a really pretty teal. I apologize for being so vacation brainy. I'm just kind of like, if I stop talking for a while, Sarah, you're just gonna have to ask me a question.
I will.
I'm just like off in la la land.
I know. We have got questions. We have 350 people watching.
Holy moly!
The chat is live and crackling. The moderators are doing a great job helping me out get some of these questions answered.
Oh,
and
good.
One person I've seen has been blocked.
Oh my God.
So we have questions and chat.
Oh, awesome. Holy cow, that's a lot of people.
Yes. Hillary Trujillo, any tips for starters who want to paint with watercolors?
Paint. That's you just gotta paint. You gotta put brush to paper. There's no watching, there's no substitute. There's no watching tutorials or reading books that is gonna be a substitute for putting your paint to paper. I'm just dabbing in some color up here just to give it a little bit of a feathery texture. Do the same in here. I still gotta pack my art supplies for camp. I'm deciding. I think I'm gonna go and dig through and find some watercolor palettes I haven't used in a while.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. And
then you'll be forced to use them because that's all you're gonna have.
Exactly. Gotta bring stuff for the girls too, because they always raid my art supplies.
Carrie Tamber, I've seen the pastel jellyfish, but have you done any watercolor octopus or jellyfish? I'm having a bugger of a time to make them look fluid and adding in the suckers in watercolor.
Gosh, I haven't. That'd be kind of a fun idea though.
Yeah,
put it on my request list. Actually, that's where I got this. Like, a few people had asked me for a peacock, and I got it from the request list. So I'm going right in with the permanent Gamboge. I'm doing because I know that all the colors I'm going to be putting in here are not going to be bothered by having that yellow underneath, so I'm just going to go ahead and just do this wash right here, right now. It's such a pretty color. It's very transparent for a yellow. A lot of times your yellows tend to be opaque, but this is a very pretty transparent yellow.
Keita, I joined a bit late, so I'm skipping the background. How important are backgrounds?
It's a personal choice. A lot of people don't do backgrounds. If you look at, especially if you follow a bunch of watercolors on Instagram, there's a lot of people that do botanicals and they do not put a background in. They're painting very realistically and they just let the white of the paper kind of highlight the work that they're doing, and that's really lovely. So there's this kind of, it's just personal preference. I happen to like backgrounds, so I try to get them out of the way at the beginning so I don't have to fuss around with them later. I'm taking a little phthalo green and adding it to the bottom of the tail and pulling it in. We're really only seeing just beyond the edge of the peacock's body. I have 2 reference photos linked up, and as we go on, we're going to be using more reference photos instead of just one reference photo, because I don't want you to have reference photos as a crutch. I want them to be a tool to help you paint, but not a crutch that you feel like you have to paint everything exactly the way it is. So you notice last week we used 2 reference photos, and we're going to be doing that a lot more as we go on here in our painting adventures.
Craft a Smile, can you suggest 4 or 5 brush sizes and shapes for a beginning watercolorist? You are both awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yes, we are, aren't we? Sarah's awesome.
I try. Some days are better than others.
The brush I use the most would probably be a number 8 round. Then like a number 3 or 4 round. And then you don't have to have a 1-inch wash or this is a 3/4 inch actually, or number 20 flat wash. I find it really handy for backgrounds, but it's not kind of going to break you. If you have a nice big round, that's the most important brush to start with. And then I would say these 2. Another good one would be a 1/2 inch. So if you had a 1-inch and a 1/2 inch flat, those would be great brushes. You don't need to have a lot. In fact, a lot of paintings I do are done with one brush, 1 round 8, because you can get a fine detail when it's like when you work on the tip of the brush, or you've got this whole juicy fat body of a paintbrush to hold paint. So that's what I would start out with, and get a good quality brush. They're not crazy expensive nowadays, and you can really get some nice brushes. In fact, I'm going to switch to my smaller brush. This is a 4, but you could use, but I actually was thinking it was a 3. A 3 or 4 is going to be fine for you. And I'm going to mix up some of the Gamboge with some of the burnt umber to get a golden color for the iris of the eye. On our peacock, we can get that done because I don't think it's around much. It's gonna bleed.
Baru Siva. Hi, Lindsay. I have always wanted to ask you to paint a peacock. Thank you for doing this. Excited.
You're welcome.
Steph13. I've been thinking on buying the watercolor starter kit from Michaels. Is that a good start or not? Oh, and paintbrushes to start. Thank you, Lindsay.
Well, I know Michaels sells Artist Loft, and I have not used Artist Loft, but everybody I know that's picked up those paints has been very disappointed with them. So I would advise against that. You're better off to buy like 3 tubes of really good quality paint than you are to buy 18 colors of crappy paint. This set here that I'm using, I've been using this for almost a year, and I still have this much paint left. I did squeeze out all the tubes in here. This was $29, so it's not cheap, but it's not that expensive as far as artist quality paints go. And to replace these colors, a lot of their bigger tubes are only $4. In fact, I saw some on sale right now for like $3.25 a tube, so it's economical. I also recommend the Cotman series by Winsor & Newton. A lot of people complain about that, but I have never had a problem with Cotman paints. You can always spray them with a spray bottle before you begin painting if you're thinking that maybe they're not going to be bright enough for you, or you're having a hard time getting them to release, like if you live in a really humid area. But I really find them to be a good value and not very expensive. So I would go with Cotman or Turner, just because I know they're gonna serve you well, and they're not crazy expensive. I'm gonna move on to some of the details on the wing, and this is gonna kind of be backwards. I'm gonna actually go in with a mix, and I'm gonna make a dark mix. I'm taking the blue and red mix that we made, that really, really dark color, and I'm going to add burnt umber to it. And we're going to paint this, and then later we are going to do a wash over it with that really, really pale gray that we made. So it's and it's going to soften any of these marks that we make. So we're going to go in with a stark value. It might be a little scary.
I'm a little nervous just watching it.
So I'm just kind of dabbing in almost like a scallop design. I'm not going for really good detail or anything. We're just going with a suggestion. This is just kind of the supporting role here. The face and the plumage here is going to be the show stealer. Everything else, the background, these wings, these are just supporting elements. So we're just getting in the hint of some texture and some striping on the wings.
Vapor Eon Fanatic 1234. What are your thoughts on the Prima watercolor paints for a beginner watercolor artist?
You know, those are really good. I was so surprised at how nice those paints were. In fact, I just recently, because I had the classics and the tropicals, Prima had sent them to me and asked me if I would tell them what I thought of them, and I was surprised at how good they were, because they usually a lot of times when craft companies come out with paints, they're not really designed for artists. They're more designed for like just a casual user, just putting some color on a coloring book or a scrapbook page or a card, but they don't really think about how they're going to flow, because you're generally not doing really big washes. They're more on like, okay, what are the trendy colors and all that stuff. Now there's no light fastness information, so I don't know how much longevity the work will have that you make with them, but as far as painting with them, they are fantastic. And I took them to a life class the other day. I just got the Decadent Pies set, and they're fantastic. They remind me an awful lot of the Lucas paints, actually. And the thing I thought, well, I have nothing to lose, because the case, the metal tin they come in, just those metal tins are over $20 on any art supply store or Amazon. And it's like you're buying a tin, you're getting the paints for free. Even if you don't care for the paints or you upgrade, you've already got the tin, and you can reuse that as much as you like. So I mean, I think they're a solid bet. I don't know, as far as I would get the tropicals if you want a really versatile set. The classics have some useless colors, and I really like Decadent Pies if you're going to do landscapes or portraits. But as far as the most versatility and the brightest colors, the tropicals will give you the most basic palette. And there's no duplications with any of the sets. So if you do decide you want to add more, you're not going to be buying the same, you're not going to get a white and black in every set or anything like that.
JLT 110. Do the Zen brushes come for acrylics and watercolors. Mine seem to look and feel like golden Taklon and don't hold much water. Did I get the wrong ones?
I think you might have gotten the acrylic ones because I had one. I only bought one, and it's got synthetic hairs, but they feel like natural hair, and they're very absorbent. So I think so. If you haven't, you might be able to return them. If you haven't, if you still have all the packaging and stuff. I'm going in with that same dark color that we just used. I'm adding some to the pupil of the eye. And it's okay if it blends a little bit into the iris because you want it to have the kind of a soft, kind of dreamy look anyway. And I am going to kind of tap above the eye a little bit. Hopefully my hand's not in the way. I'll try to scoot my hand back on the brush a little bit so you can see a little bit better. I'm just tapping in because I don't want the Peacock to look like I put eyeliner or anything. I want it to kind of look...
Mascara.
Maybe she's born with it. Actually, it's a boy because it's a...
Yes, that's true. Kevin Crespo, what watercolor paper beside Arches do you like to use?
I like what I'm working on right now is Fabriano Uno, and I'm using cold press. And it's linked in the video description. I like that. They use the synthetic sizing, so if you're concerned about animal byproducts, it doesn't use gelatin. It's more affordable than Arches, and it has a pretty good shelf life because I have some that's quite old, and I can full sheets stored under my bed in a flat file, and I frequently go and tear it down to use. And some of it I've had for 15 years, and it holds up really well. It used to be called Fabriano Uno, but they changed the name to Artistico a few years ago. But that's good. Fabriano also has a studio line, which I use to make, I'll show you here. I use it on my watercolor blocks that I make to take out painting. I just made these panoramic ones. I'm excited to use them during my vacation. But I really like the studio stuff. As long as you're not doing a ton of lifting, you can do some lifting. It works really well, and they're very affordable. I think Jerry's has them for... It's about $30 for an 11 by 14, and you can either get 50, 140-pound sheets or 75, 90-pound sheets. And I use the 90-pound stuff quite a bit, especially if I'm going to stretch it or not work too large. So, very, very affordable there. And they come in 9 by 12 size as well. Again, I'm just tapping in some of that dark color to give the illusion of feathers. Really not much you can mess up here. Just tappa, tappa, tappa.
Tappa, 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 tappa.
So I went on a rope swing yesterday.
Oh, you did? Into the pond?
Into the pond.
Lake?
Yeah, into the pond. Yeah, well, I've been meaning to go on this rope swing for a long time because the kids go on all the time. And I'm like, how hard can that be? That looks like a lot of fun. I think I'm going to try it. The beach wasn't too busy. And I found a really awesome rope swing when I was hiking last week, and I thought, ooh, that looks fun, but you better kind of break in on some smaller rope swing, because the one that I saw on Fields Pond is way high up, and it does a huge tall. You must be 20 feet over the water.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
So I'm like, I need to break myself in on something that's a little bit more shallow and not so high, and something I've seen other people do successfully. And so I decided yesterday I was going to do that, and the girls were telling me how to do it. And so they told me to grab the rope with my non-dominant hand, and I'm right-handed, so I had it with my left hand. They said you need to jump and at the same time grab higher with your right hand, and then
I'm already too many.
Yeah, and then grab with your legs. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I swing out, holding on only with my left hand, grab with my right, start sliding down the rope. As I'm sailing over the shoreline, I slip, I skid. I don't know how long I skidded for. I felt like I simultaneously hit the ground like a sack of potatoes and skid for about 20 feet. I had gravel where you don't want gravel.
No, that's terrible.
So then I get up and I said, okay, I see what I did wrong. I'm doing it again. So I get right back up on the swing, and my daughters are shocked, and my friend Heather was with me, and she's like, you are not getting back. I'm like, I'm doing it again. I know what I did wrong.
Doing it. It's happening.
I am going to at least do it once. And so the next time I did do much more successfully. I still landed in some pretty shallow water like a sack of potatoes, but I didn't slide into home.
You didn't get more gravel where you didn't
get
want
any more gravel. Oh boy.
It was loofah-ing.
Yes, I'm completely exfoliated.
It's like a newborn baby.
Yep, I got some road rash.
Starshine Soldier. Taught my first class on Wednesday, Lindsay. Thank you for letting me use your video. Saved my life.
Oh, I'm so glad. Good for you. Oh, something else I forgot to mention. And you'd find this useful. Anybody that does any teaching, or if you do any like painting groups, maybe you get together like with a group of people to paint for fun, and you all want to have the same supplies. There is, if you go to Jerry's Artorama and you click on my account, you'd click on the words my account, that would take you to your account. You can actually make teachers lists. And what it does is it makes a list of supplies, and if somebody wants to use exactly what you're using, they can just click add to cart, and you can even upload a picture of like the project you're going to be doing. I've been waiting for a feature like this for so long as a teacher, to be able to say, yeah, this is what you need, and then they can go through and pick and choose what they want after they add it to their cart. But it's a really useful tool, and if you're a teacher or you organize any sort of painting groups, I highly recommend it. I'm just glazing on some more of the, I glazed on some more of the phthalo blue, and now I'm just kind of adding some of the phthalo blue with Pyroll red shadowy color in there, just to deepen up some of these colors I thought were a little too light.
Cassandra Gilbert, what would be the corresponding colors in Winsor and Newton colors?
They would have the same, they would have there should be some with the same names, but you could use a cadmium red instead of a Pyroll red, or you could use a vermilion or a Pyroll scarlet. I'm not sure what you have for Winsor Newtons, but those, any sort of warm red. Phthalo blue is that's a pretty normal color everywhere. Winsor Newton sometimes calls their stuff like Windsor blue. If you have Windsor blue, you want like Windsor blue green shade. I don't think there's anything else that would be a different name. They have permanent Gamboge, or you could use also cadmium red if you don't have permanent Gamboge. Let's see what else. Burnt umber is a very standard color. Turquoise, you could use, if they don't have a turquoise, you could use like a cerulean blue or a cobalt teal. Cobalt teal would be really pretty, actually. I'm going to lift a little bit of that off. It's a little too much there. Okay, now we're going to work back here. Now this is, I'm going to blast it real quick with my heat gun because I don't want my feathers to feather.
No. Mary Wright, what brushes do you use that hold the water in the handle? Travel brushes? Can you tell me? I'm a beginner.
Sure, they're called water brushes. Excuse me. And a lot of different companies make them. They just have, and some of them will actually have a little stopper so you can like fold your brush, so you can take your brushes apart and make them even smaller. But there's lots of good brands. Caran d'Ache makes a nice one. Koi, Niji, they all make good ones. Prima has 2 packs that are a pretty good deal. Oh, and there's also there's like a set of 5 for like $12 at Jerry's called, I think it's Aquaflow. The only thing I'll warn you about those is they're a little harder to squeeze than the other ones, but they are less expensive. But I think Jerry's also has the Nijis and the Caran d'Ache. Prima is also a really good one. They're a little harder to find unless you shop more craft stores. I'm going to start with some burnt umber and my Gamboge. I think I might put a little touch of the red in there too. That same Pyroll Scarlet. We're always using the same colors. Your painting looks much more sophisticated if you don't get too many colors going. This is going to give us a nice gold. And I'm just going to flick in some dabs.
Angel T, I would like to know why there's always a white paint in a set when no one ever uses white. What are the uses for white? And would you ever do a video dedicated to how to use white?
You know what? That's so funny because I was just painting with another set of paints that included a white and a black, and I was thinking, I've got to find something to use these paints for because what a waste. Sometimes you'll use white as gouache or body color. You can mix it with your colors to work like opaquely if you wanted to work on like a black paper or a toned paper, or to replace areas that you accidentally lost while you were painting, or to do like, snow or stars or something like that. Generally, I think they put them in a kit because a lot of people think they need white. So they put it in there because people buy it, basically. It's a problem we all face. It's annoying. But I usually don't squirt it in my palette and I leave it. And then if I do need to rescue something, then I will go and I will grab that white if I need to like flick on some sea spray, or I need to put a cat whisker in or something and I didn't mask it out. So that's a good way to use it. But yeah, I think it's mainly they make it because people buy it, and some people, you know, if they're a gouache painter, they'll want that, and it is a good way to rescue a painting if all else fails. You know, if you're just going to be throwing it away because you're not happy with the way it looks, then throw some white on it. What do you got to lose, you know? And the black, I find black on its own is really dead, but I was experimenting mixing it with some other earth tones and getting some really cool cool effects. In fact, I could show you a little painting I did right here. I mixed black with some blue, with some Prussian blue, and with some yellow ochre and browns, and did this natural feather rendering. So you know, just experiment. You might find an awesome technique that it works for. I wish they wouldn't put those in kits, because you never will go through all the blacks and whites that come with the kits, it seems like. I'm going to take some of the Pthalo blue on its own. I managed to dirty both my clean and dirty water today. These colors are so bright. Oh, well.
It's all right.
I'm just going to dab some Pthalo blue right in here, nice and strong, and let it blend in.
Jashnur Darwal, do you have any tips to stop using videos as a crutch and start using it as a tool?
I would say go outside and draw what you see, if you can, if it's possible. You could always start looking at reference photos. Paint My Photo, if you're not a member there already, it's free. It's a wonderful website where photographers share their artwork with artists, and they can paint it. And even if you can't, you know, you're allowed to do anything you want with your painting when you're done, so you don't have to worry about copyright. That's where I get a lot of the photos for my tutorials here, and it's just a wonderful resource. So try going from photos sometimes and see how that works for you. And then, of course, drawing from life what you see. If you can get out, I know it's not a possibility for everybody, but if you can get out, it's a wonderful thing. So now I think I'm going to switch over to my larger flat brush here. You can also use a larger round, but I'm thinking this might be helpful just to kind of break us out of the working kind of fussing a little bit. And I'm going to mix up some of the Gamboge and the brown again, so I get a nice gold. And I'm going to start putting some larger circles where I want there to be like the eyes of the peacock feathers. And I'm starting big down here, and I'm going to work smaller as I get up to the really packed close feathers that are up there.
Gracie Shack, Lindsay, I sold 10 paintings and made a fair bit of cash at a local craft shop.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
Run Flash Run 14. Could I use a mixed media sketchbook for watercolor?
You know, you can. It's not going to be as resilient to like lifting and stuff as watercolor paper because it's thinner. But that Canson XL, I use that a lot, and I find it to work very well for that. I'm just flicking some little lines to be like the barbs of the feather, just to get them in right now, so I don't have to worry about it later. And I went to a life drawing class the other day, and that's what I brought, my Canson XL sketchbook, and I brought Conte crayons and watercolors, and it's in waterproof pens, and it worked really good. I mean, it will wrinkle a little bit, but you know, for quick sketches, I think it's fine. If you want to work like for 45 minutes on one painting, you're going to wear out the paper. It just can't take so much, but you can do quite a bit with it. Let's see. Now I'm going to go in with some turquoise. I'm just going to take it right off the pan. And turquoise is a heavier color, meaning like it's a thicker, it's not as fluid, and it's going to stay put a little bit better. So what I can do is even go in here in some of these feathers and just put these little half circles here, and that's going to be the bottom part of the eye of the peacock feather. And I'm using this not very watery, it's very paint heavy. Clean my brush if I pick up too much of the stuff underneath, and I'll blot it and then pick up more paint. So I'm putting on a fairly thick paint here, but turquoise does tend to be a little more opaque. It might even have some titanium white in it. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't save my my tubes. I probably should have.
Monica Pala, is hot pressed watercolor paper more difficult to work with, less water control?
Right, things will slide more because there's not the ridges to hold your paint in place, but it's more versatile if you're doing like botanical flowers where you might want that really smooth surface for detail, or portraits. It all depends on what you're painting. And rough is really great for landscape because it imparts some of that texture right off the bat. I think I'm going to grab a liner brush, and let me just show you here. Sometimes it's called a rigger. It basically just has really long bristles. And you could do a synthetic or a natural hair or a faux synthetic like I have here. And I'm going to grab some of that brown. Actually, you want to mix it out with a different paintbrush because they're really too soft to mix with. I'm just going to add a little bit of brown and a little bit more gold in there because I want more of that color, but a little bit darker. And I want to put the hairs, some of the hairs that would be on these feathers in here. So I'm just going to put some around each of the eyes that I have. And this is a fairly like abstract version we're doing here. I'm not looking for precise detail. I'm looking more capture the essence of the bird instead of like an actual, you know, Audubon, like, you know, I don't know, what do you call it? Scientific rendering.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I know what you mean, but yeah. I can't think of it either. Back to your attempt at the swing rope. People were really hoping you got it on video because they would love to see it on YouTube.
I was just thinking I could have won like $10,000 in America's Funniest Home Videos or something if I had. You know, that was totally America's Funniest Home Videos. You know, fodder right there.
It really. I wished I could have seen it.
Oh boy, poor my friend Heather was like, oh, because when I was telling her I wanted to use a rope swing, she's like, oh, I've seen so many people get hung up on rope swings or get their feet caught and they just dangle. I'm never getting on one of those. I'm like, but look, it looks so fun. Oh, and it's much higher up. Once you get up on that rock and you're looking down, it's higher up than it seems when you're on the beach looking at the rope swing.
You figure the kids can do it, so
exactly.
Excuse me, Chewy.
All right, now I think we can actually glaze over those wings. So you want to make sure that you're not going to use a brush that's going to lift up that paint too badly. So I'm using a soft brush. I'm going to mix the turquoise and the Pyroll red to give us a nice soft.
Oh, Chewy farted. That's why she left.
Oh, what a bad dog.
Oh.
She tooted and walked away.
Oh, man.
She's like a kid.
Whew, yuck. Oh, I don't know what she's been eating, but oh, Lord.
Oh, boy. Naughty dog.
Well, she can't help it. Mary Wright, what brand of travel brushes? I bought cheap ones on eBay and they suck up water from the page.
Ooh, I hate it when that happens. Some of them will have a little valve in them, and that valve kind of makes the water go one way. I'm adding a little bit of yellow to that. And I found that, well, any of the brands that I mentioned are really, really good. Like the Niji, the Koi. So I noticed I just got a really fine tip Koi brush, and it feeds out water quicker than I like. But the other Koi, the Niji, the Prima, Caran d'Ache, those are all real good ones, and they don't seem to suck up the paint. I don't think the Aquaflow suck up the paint either, but I have had some that have done that before. I'm just going to test this out in a scrap before I put it on my paper to see how. That's about right. That's not too dark. I might add just a smidge more water to that. I want to make sure I have enough so I don't have to stop and remix, because then I'll get some awkward lines. So I'm just going to glaze over. And I mean, you could probably even glaze over with just water and pick up enough paint that's already there to give it a tone, but I wanted to have a little bit more color in there. And if you got too dark, then you can always blot. I don't think that's too dark. It's going to dry a little bit lighter, but you can always just gently blot a little bit. And you want to do that if you can see part of the wing back there. And it's a good idea to use the biggest brush you can handle. I have a set of these brushes, and I find that the four that I mentioned are the most useful, but there are quite a few brushes there if you do like to work on more detailed items, and it's nice to have those different options, but try to get the biggest brush you can handle, because it will keep you from fussing and messing around on like little details that you probably could just leave be. Now I'm going to go to these little feathers up here, And I'm going to use a couple different colors, and I'm going to go with a number 4 brush, I think, for this. I'm going to start with that nice dark blue that we made with the phthalo blue and the Pyroll red. And that's what we're going to start at the bottom of our little feathers with. It's very inky color. And I'm just going to flick up. Oops, you know what? I could see I have a spot right there. If I don't blot that up and paint gets in it, we're going to have a big mess there. All right. And you also want to check your Pyroll for drops. You don't want the puddles. So I'm just giving little dabs of this where I want the beginning of these little feathers. And there's a bunch of them there. And then we're going to clean our brush and go with the blue on its own, the phthalo blue on its own.
Emily Redecker. Lindsay, what is your biggest tip for young artists?
Make art.
Do it.
Do it. Yeah, you're an artist if you make art. And, you know, you don't have to spend money to make art. You don't have to have anyone's permission to make art. Just make art. I'm going to grab some of the turquoise on its own and add it to the top of each of these and let it just kind of blend in. And then for these little barbs, I'm going to do the Pyroll red with a little bit of turquoise to dull it down. And the same brush. You could switch to a liner if you prefer, but this brush will also do.
Keita, some watercolor sketchbooks are really expensive. What watercolor sketchbooks do you recommend?
Well, if you don't want to make your own, I'm going to actually turn this so I can grab it a little bit easier. The Strathmore 140 pound visual journals are nice and they're very inexpensive. They're about $5 for the 5x7 size at Jerry's and even in some big box stores if you have any. But they're oh yeah, right there.
Just so people can see what they look like.
Yeah, this is the mixed media one, but they have 140 pound watercolor as well. I really like these. They'll fit in a handbag. Oh, there's the watercolor one. Right there. They're pretty well sized. They're not a cotton paper, so just keep that in mind. But for urban sketching, they've got a beautiful texture. I like the paper in here. It seems to be about like the Strathmore 400 series, I would say, because it doesn't have that telltale tractor tire marks that like the Strathmore 300 series has. But I love those, and you know, you get them around $5. I mean, you can't beat it. That's
affordable.
Yeah, it's very affordable and useful, and it's not too precious, so you'll actually use it. I feel like I want a little more red maybe in there. It's looking a little dull. Just gonna flick some in at the bottom, kind of thicken up the barbs at the bottom with the red. Okay, so now I want to put a few more details on the feathers out here. I'm gonna grab some of the phthalo blue on its own, and I'm sticking with a smaller brush now because we're getting into the detail areas of our picture. I really want to show you how filthy my water is. Look at this. One of these sides should be clean. One of these should be dirty. I was double dipping here.
It's all right, vacation brain.
Double dipping in the wrong water.
Dominique Designs. Quick question. Why did you do the outline in graphite instead of watercolor or Inktense pencils?
Because I made a pattern and I transferred it on with graphite paper. But if I was sketching directly, I could stay. I would actually, when I did my sample, I sketched it right straight on with a black pen, and I loved the way that looked. I almost thought, geez, maybe we should do a pen and ink. But yeah, you totally could. But since I was making a pattern for you guys, I sketched it on a separate piece of paper, and then I just transferred it onto graphite, so we'd all be working on the same thing. I'm making like 2 little strokes next to each other, so it gives you that kind of little heart shape that you would see in the center of a peacock feather. And I got a water splot here, so I'm going to turn that into one. Because when I lifted it, I removed the paint underneath, so I thought, well, that's a good place for another peacock feather. And I think it kind of looks good if you have some areas of the paper that are still wet, because then you'll have some that are out of focus and some that are nice and sharp and in focus. Add a little depth. And now I'm going to go around anywhere I missed the turquoise and add it in there. Like I That was for my water spot one, so that didn't have the turquoise in there. I'm going to brighten some of this turquoise up because some of it is really muted. And turquoise is more of an opaque color. That's why I think it might have some titanium white in it. It's still considered a transparent color, but it's not completely transparent. And now I'm going to go in with the yellow on its own because we're going to be putting it on top of other colors, so it's not going to seem like crazy yellow. So this is the permanent Gamboge. It's got kind of the consistency of like half and half type cream, and I'm going around the top of each of the circles that we put in just to give it a little glow.
Katie Stemley, do you like the Tim Holtz water brushes?
I don't have one of theirs, so I can't say for sure. I think they're probably decent. They're probably made by one of the other companies that I mentioned earlier. I've seen people use them. They're probably fine. I just don't have any. Do you have his water brush?
I don't. No, I don't have any water brushes.
You don't?
Actually, I don't. No.
They take a little getting used to. When I first started using them, I'm like, I don't like these, but they were just so convenient instead of like to travel paint that I got used to them, and now I like them.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going in a little bit of brown, kind of around the eye of the feather, kind of on the bottom into the edge. I'm letting it kind of meet up with the yellow and blend together, but I'm really just kind of doing like a C shape. I'm starting under the feather eye and bringing it up, almost just tracing like half of the center and letting it feed into the yellow paint that I have there too, just so it kind of blends. And I don't want anything to look really overly painted. I want it to feel very natural and very sketchy. There's this little, almost like there's little half shapes here.
Mar88, what acrylic varnish do you recommend? Glossy or matte?
Probably matte, because glossy will make it hard to photograph your work afterwards, and it can glare depending on where it's hung. It'll make your colors seem a little less vibrant, or the glossy will make your colors look more vibrant. The matte shouldn't really change it all that much, except for giving it more of a uniform look. And I want a little of that brown color up in here too. I'm just going to kind of dab it here and there, because we just have really packed, close together feathers here. Just little dabs, nothing very, very abstract here, doing a pattern. Alright, now I'm going to back to the liner, and I'm going to take some of that really, really bright green, that phthalo green, because on a peacock's feather you have all these different, the filaments, the fibers that come off are all different colors. They're gold, green, blue, so I'm going to throw in some of those little fine lines and those other colors as well. And the way that the feathers are just kind of laying down, you don't get to see any one feather on its own. So by putting in all these elements, it's going to give us the illusion of all of these feathers just kind of like packed up on top of each other. And have fun with this process. This is something you could really take a long time on and really have a good time with it.
JLT 110. Thanks for answering my storage issues working in an unheated porch. You said to take in glues and acrylics. What about watercolors and liquids? Also stamp pads, re-inkers, and markers.
Those should all be fine, as long as like you don't have bottles of ink that are so close to the cap they're gonna explode. You know, they're gonna burst if they freeze. Freezing shouldn't harm those items. It's the it's your acrylics that are harmed by the freezing. I'm going to grab a little blue, do the same thing. Take the blue on its own, not the dark mix that we had. We want everything we're putting on here now, we want to be pretty bright, because otherwise we're going to get mud. And I'm going to put a little something, I'm going to put this roll of tape under there so you can, because I'm getting a little glare, I think. Hopefully that's a little easier to see. Yeah, luckily my basement doesn't get so cold it freezes, but I make sure I keep like my Mod Podge, I get Mod Podge by the gallons. I make sure I have that up high on a shelf so it's closer to the floor joists for upstairs where it's going to be a little warmer. Got to protect our investments.
Yes. And Mod Podge cannot, there's no substitute for Mod Podge. You can't make your own.
No. You can make decoupage medium.
But not Mod Podge.
I know. I feel like I should be getting a sponsorship deal for Mod
You
Podge.
should.
Come on, Mod Podge.
you know you want to. You know you do. There's so many new types of Mod Podge now, too.
I know.
Coming out with new stuff all the time.
I could get my Podge for free. Do a Podge. My Podge budget. My Podge budget is way high.
Even with the coupons, it's still too much.
The Frugal Crafter has a large Podge budget. It's like 50% of my my yearly spending is Podge related.
My warrior in hiding. In your experience as an artist, how do you cope with artist block?
I'll do something unpleasant, like clean, and then when the muse strikes me, I give myself permission. I'm like, I'm gonna clean until I get an idea. But I have a lot of deadlines, so it really spurs you. It may seem horrible that you have to work under deadlines, but it actually spurs my creativity along, knowing that I have to get like a certain project done by a certain time for a client. That I find that, and a lot of times that really great idea I end up using, or what I think is like the best idea, comes at like the last minute when I just have like an hour left before I have to have a project completed. And for me, it's those deadlines. So, even if it's not your job, you can set up deadlines to kind of spur you along when you're having a hard time. And it might work great for you, it might not. It's a very personal thing. It works great for me. So I feel like I'll need a little more luminance here. So I'm going to go in with my turquoise. I'm going to just kind of put in some colors in the highlight area. I'm being very choppy. And I'm using, look at that, the full body of the brush. Full body of the brush, just kind of slapping it down there to give me some texture. Do the same with the phthalo blue. So we're building up glazes, we're building up layers. That's why you want transparent colors when you're glazing, because you want to be able to see what's underneath. You want to build up the richness of color. You dab it and you'll get a little bit of that texture. And feathers are so shiny, they have a really pretty sheen to them, so we want this really full area of the peacock chest. We want that to be as light as possible, and we want around it to be dark so it really puffs it out. How are we doing for time, Sarah?
It is 1:34.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll be wrapping up here in about 10 minutes or less. Or your pizza's free.
Pizza! I did not say I was not told there would be pizza today. Now I'm excited.
I might have to get pizza. We tried to been trying to avoid doing grocery shopping until we had to shop for camp, so we wouldn't have a bunch of food spoiling. So to go to the beach yesterday, I had to go to the deli down the road and order sandwiches, and then on the way home I picked up sandwiches from Subway.
Yep. Well, you can't leave food in the fridge for a week. It's gonna go bad.
Yeah.
And now that you don't have chickens anymore, you can't feed the leftovers to them.
Exactly. I'm so glad I had a nice home to send the chickens to.
Yes. Cinnamon Cooney has joined us, the art Sherpa.
Oh, hey, Cinnamon.
Here for a few more minutes.
Oh, fantastic.
Everyone is very excited to see her. It's been a couple of weeks since she's been able to join us.
I know. She's an exciting person to see. I'm going to take a little of the Pyroll red, and
foiled by the time zones again.
Oh yeah. I've got kind of a dirty mix going here with the Pyroll red, and that's what I want. I don't want it too bright. I'm just going to go and add a little bit of that. See, it's just going to really perk up that beak. And we're going to do a little bit here where the edge of the beak is.
Jashnur Darwal, where do you think I can find cheap paints? We don't have a Michaels near us.
Are you in the United States? If so, Jerry's Artorama is a fantastic site. The set that I'm using is $30, and it has seen me through a lot of different paintings. I highly recommend it, and if you need to replace any of the colors, you can buy them in larger tubes, so you're not stuck buying a whole new set with colors you're not going to use up as quickly when you use them up. Although a lot of people have told me they just keep buying the same set over again because they love it so much. So Either way, I guess I've used mine pretty evenly. I don't seem like I'm almost out of one and have a ton left of another, except for the white and black that they put in that in that set. Maybe I could use my pull over there. Maybe they would stop putting them. Maybe they would replace those two colors. Hey, come on, Jerry. We need to do something different about that black and white.
Jashnor lives in Canada.
You know, if you're not in Quebec, you can order from a lot of American companies.
Mm-hmm.
And with the language laws, Quebec's a little more limited, but some companies must ship to Quebec. There's got to be ones that have... I know most of the art supplies I get from everywhere have French instructions.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, online would be probably the easiest, because I don't know. I'm not familiar with Canada and what they have.
Maybe even like, because there's Amazon Canada, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there? I'm pretty sure there is.
I'm not sure. I've never looked, but even if not, I think a lot of companies will ship to Canada.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it's pretty.
I
think it's more common to find places that will ship to Canada than not.
Yeah, and you know, I've even found stuff on Etsy too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of them have no problem shipping. It's a little bit more. Obviously, if they're not Canadian sellers, they're going to charge more because they have to pay it. But you know, that's always an option. I haven't. I don't know if I would. I don't know. I see deals on eBay, but I don't shop at eBay very often, so I'm a little leery. But it doesn't mean it's not a good idea. But you know, I would first see if you could find like a reputable seller that, and there are ones on eBay. I'm not saying there aren't, but see if you can find a reputable store so you can at least you'll reorder if you decide you love something that you've picked up too. And I'm just adding some more of that mix of phthalo blue and pyroll red to any of the shadow areas.
People are wanting to know where the chickens went.
They went to my friend Alexis, and she has like a farm of. She already has like 50 chickens, and she took the chickens and the coop and all the accessories, and that way there'll be no more temptation of getting chickens if we don't have a coop and all that other stuff. Let the record show, I did not want
more chickens.
I did not want the chickens the last time.
You didn't know.
No.
I watched the look on your face about when the chickens were being discussed. There was no chicken love there.
I mean, I love this. See, the thing is, I love animals, and kids get very excited about animals, but then when it comes to taking care of the animals, you know, and they need water twice a day in the winter because everything freezes, and you have to, you know, let them in and let them out and close them up so they don't get, you know, cold, so they can retain some heat. And, you know, there's just so much to it that, you know, kids want cute chicks, and there's so much more, you know, it's such a responsibility, and I'm not going to let a chicken suffer or die or starve or dehydrate. So a lot of that responsibility falls on me because it's they're kind of like out of sight, out of mind, I feel.
Mm-hmm. JLT 110. I was given a big stack of pre-cut mats in some odd colors. How do you know what color to mat, and can I use acrylics to change the color?
I have even stamped on mats and watercolored on mats before. I don't see why not. It shouldn't hurt anything. Maybe use like a roller or a brayer or a sponge brush, or maybe not even try to get a uniform coat. Just try to have some fun and do some neat stuff with it. And then, like, as far as choosing mats for a painting, I try to look at the painting and figure out a color that's going to enhance it rather than detract from it. No, this is going to blend a little bit better when it dries. This wet color is just looking really dark because it is still wet, and there's a little, you know, watercolors shift a little bit later as they dry, but I am blending it there a little bit just in case it doesn't shift as much as I hope. And then I think all I need to do is maybe just take some of that phthalo blue and maybe just darken up the little hearts on the these the peacock feathers and the tail. And I think I'll take a little of that darker mix and just throw in a few shadows, lines. And I think that we are done. I don't think I'm going to spatter this one.
What?
I know.
And of course, Rich isn't here today.
I know. He's not even here to enjoy the non-spattering. Actually, I think
it's
something I want to do to the wings. The wings are looking just too stark to me, so I am going to take some of that yellow and brown, the burnt umber and permanent gamboge, really watery, And I just feel like I want to, they're just too stiff and lifeless. So I want to add a little bit of color in there. And I think maybe even take a little of that red, because I don't feel like the red was very represented in this painting.
People are seeing a heart on your peacock chest.
A heart? Like,
yes.
Like here?
I think so.
Is it bad or good, guys?
No, they're loving it. They think it's
Okay.
great. People are loving the peacock in general. People are very excited.
And this is artistic license. There's no red in the peacock wings, but I think it just really brings out the green in the back, and I felt the wings were too light, and so I'm putting it in. You don't have to do that, but I really liked it. So I just think it gives it a little bit extra life. A couple little notes I want to point out. I left a little speck in the eye, and I don't think I talked about it when I did it. I think I just painted around it. I left that there so there would be a little shimmer in the eye and give it a little personality. And if you felt like you needed any little sharp highlights, rather than using white, I mean, you could use your white for that. I would take a little razor blade and like slice out any highlights if you want. Like if you wanted any here and like the little flags coming off the top of his head. Or you could always use colored pencil. It's another great idea. But that pretty much does it. I'm just going to tip it flat. Hopefully there won't be a ton of glare and you can see it all done there. Do we have any last minute questions while we're...
No, just some general chat. People are chatting and boop, loving the peacock.
Wonderful. Well, I hope you guys try it. It's not as difficult as it looks, and you can always pause the video if you're watching the replay and work on it at your own pace. I want to thank Jerry's Artorama for sponsoring today's video. I always appreciate their support. They have the best prices online for your art supplies, and they're a really excellent company. I also want to let you know that Craftsy is having a 50% off sale on a lot of their classes. All of their new classes are 50% off. So if you've had some that you've been having your eye on and that you've wanted to pick up but you didn't want to pay full price, they're on sale now. Click the link in the video description, and that helps support this channel too. It doesn't cost you any more, but it helps me bring you these free daily tutorials, and I do appreciate it. Thank you, Sarah, so much for helping out.
You're welcome. Thank you.
No live show next week. I'm going to be on vacation, but I am going to post an interview that Barb Owen from howtobecreative.com did with me a couple months ago. So that will be on the channel next Friday. So if you feel like you just need an hour of Lindsay to get through your day.
Who doesn't need an hour of Lindsay?
You got that. I'll also be demoing the Tim Holtz Distress crayons and the Target gel crayons and doing an art journal page during that interview. So if you like art journal mixed media stuff, that'll be there for you.
All right.
Thank you so much for painting with us today. And until next time, happy crafting.